Hi, my name is Joelle Charbonneau, and thank you so much for being here today and for letting me talk. As you know, I am the author of the Test-Trilogie and also my newest book, which I think you guys are talking about today, I hope, NODIG, or Need as it is in English. And I am very honored to be here with you today. I'm more honored than anything that you read what I've written because I am probably the least qualified person ever to write a book. In fact, when I went to college and I went to school after college for my master's degree, I didn't study writing. I was a performer. So I sing and dance. I learned to tap dance, and I am an opera performance person as well. I've sung for presidents and been on weird TV shows and sung for bad B-movie soundtracks. And writing was the last thing I ever thought I was going to do. Except the one thing I did love was stories. Really loved stories. I loved telling other people stories. And one day I decided to try to write my own. And that's how I started writing. It took me, a lot of bad books. Really, really bad. No one will ever read them, bad books. Before I finally wrote something that got me published. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to do that. And I have a lot of adult books that are goofy and funny and probably only found in the United States that are goofy mysteries. And then I wrote The Testing. I didn't even realize The Testing was a young adult novel at the time. I just had ideas that I wanted to talk about tests and leadership. And I was very, very lucky that not only did my publisher like it, but publishers around the world liked it. And you guys liked it. And you have no idea what that means to me. And as much as I enjoyed writing The Testing, I started looking at other things around me too, and I know everyone kind of expected me to write another dystopian series. But I looked at social media, and that's where the idea of N.E.E.D came from, or NODIG. I started thinking about all of these sites and the way people behave on them. I don't know about you, but I have friends on social media that say the strangest things. Like they say the things that they would never say in person. Like if you were sitting there with them, they would never say it. They know it's not a good thing to say. And yet they say it online. They're willing to say it on social media with their name attached. And I also have friends, I don't know if it's the same way by you, but that click on the get the free stuff links all the time on Facebook. So it's, hey, get a free trip to Disney World, and they'll click on it. And then the next day they're wondering why that their entire system has been hacked. And they have to change their passwords, and they apologize to everyone. And then the next week, they're doing it again. So I started looking at all of this and the comments section under any news articles. Never read the comments. It's terrible. But I started looking at all of these things and wondering, wow, these are things people are willing to do online when someone knows who they are. So what would they be willing to do if nobody knew who they were? Like, they were told they couldn't even tell anybody who they were. And even more, I was kind of curious, what would they do if they were promised something they wanted? I also started thinking a lot about two words, want and need, because I have thoughts about those and the way people use them all the time, like they're the same thing. I don't know about you guys, but here, everybody wants something and they say they need it. My son has been known to do this. He's only 8. He knows not to do it anymore. But I started wondering, do people really understand the difference? So if someone asked you what you needed, would you say one thing, and what you wanted, would you say the other? And if someone online promised to get you something you needed, whether it was a want or a need, what would you do to get it? So that's where I started working on with N.E.E.D. And I really enjoyed writing the book, even as it terrified me. I mean, really terrified me. I had to do a lot of research into it. So I looked at all of the terms and conditions that people have to accept in order to be a part of these social media sites. Okay, ask yourself, how often have you just check-marked the box and hit download app? Do you read the terms and conditions? They're like miles and miles of words long. Very few people actually read them. They're terrifying. I also started looking at like all the apps that allow you to be anonymous. And are you really anonymous? There's a couple of them out there that say, oh, nobody will know who you are. But you can click a little box and find out where the people that are users of that app are near you. Like Who here is within a mile of me and find out who they are? Yeah, not so anonymous. So I started looking at all the terms and conditions and all the privacy agreements we accept and how crazy they are and what we're allowing people to do when they invade our lives. A lot of people don't look at it. I don't know if any of you guys are on Facebook. I am on Facebook. There is an app called the Facebook Messenger app. I do not have the Facebook Messenger app. In fact, I know a lot of people who said they were never going to have the Facebook Messenger app because it tracks your every move. Every time you log on, it tracks you and it sells that information to people. And you've allowed it. You've also allowed them to get into your phone and download all your contacts. If one of your friends gets a strange phone call, it might be your fault. Yeah, I looked at all of these things and I was terrified of what I was seeing, the lack of privacy we allow in our lives because it just seems like a good idea. Well, and everybody else is doing it, so why not? I also found a strange article after I wrote the book that was about a study that was done on Facebook. And it was done for like 7,000 and some users, and a group of psychologists manipulated their feeds. So they got to choose what these people on Facebook would see, and they decided to just put negative stuff out there. Could they manipulate the mood of the person behind the screen? Yeah, that's terrible, especially since sometimes people go onto social media because it's the only good thing they want. They want to see pictures of kitty cats and puppies. Oh, come on, you guys have all got the kitty cat videos, right? It's not just us in the U.S., the crazy animal videos, because there's lots of them. But people sometimes go out there just for that, or they want to see something happy from their families, a picture of somebody's kid, some dumb gif. And they took that away from those people. And eventually someone blew the whistle on it and said it was a bad idea. I mean, the study was done. And then it turns out that it was the Department of Defense in the United States that was behind the study. So we've given up a lot of things in order to have social media. And a lot of people ask me, okay, well then why are you still on social media? Well, I'm an author, I kind of have to be. But because it's part of the future. I mean, it's never going away. But how we use it, that's the part that can change. So I know there were some questions that were sent to me beforehand that they asked me to maybe address, like, would my son be allowed on social media? Well, yeah. But I think that maybe the way we talk about social media might be different in my house. Like, we talk about the fact that what's online might not necessarily be real. That online is a completely separate world and you should be careful about it and who you're letting into your life and what you're willing to do out there. Because while social media feels sometimes unreal, because it is a whole different world, the people behind the screen really are real. And we want to make sure that those people are treated like people. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. Everyone's allowed to be treated fairly. So I think when my son goes on social media, I think that's what you're going to see more often than not. Let's see, what else? Well, as for me, I am working still on new stuff. I have a new standalone thriller that I'm working on called Time Bomb. And it's about a week before school starts for high school kids. And everyone's going in to get, new IDs or football practice. Various sports are practicing or yearbook. Do you guys have yearbook? But all those things, all the clubs are meeting. And when they're inside the school, there's a bunch of kids that all go inside. And it's from 5 different narrators' points of view. A bomb goes off. And the kids have to fight to try to get out. But they meet people in this that while they know them through school, they think that the stereotype, like they know what they've heard about that person. And that's who they assume they are. But as they're trying to fight to get out, they learn that maybe people aren't what they look like. They aren't what everyone thinks they are. Sometimes people are more than that. And maybe one of those 5 kids really is the bomber. And I don't know which one it is yet. I'm still writing the book. It could be any of them. I have reasons for all of them to be the bomber. I pitched the book originally as Die Hard meets Breakfast Club. I don't know if you guys know those movies there, but they were fan favorites of mine. They still are, and this is my version of 2 movies that should never be put together in one book. I'm also working on a fantasy series, so you might see something about that at some point. Shh, it's a secret. Don't tell anyone. Let's see, what else? I don't know. What do I challenge myself to fulfill with every novel was another question I got. You know, when I write a book, I typically have an idea about it. Like, what would people do if social media promised them something awesome that they wanted, and they thought nobody would know what they were doing to get it? Like, how far could people go? When I write a book, I think I want to know what people are capable of. And specifically, why good people? Because it's not bad people. I don't think there's a lot of comic book evil out there. I mean, there's always a really evil bad guy in comic books or in like, you know, comic book movies. You get the good guy and the bad guy. And the bad guy is evil. I don't think there's a lot of that. I think a lot of evil exists because people do what they think is right. They make choices they believe in, even when they're not so awesome. And then they just kind of refuse to believe that what they chose to think was good isn't good. They just keep pushing, even though they should say stop. I want to know at what point do we say stop? Or what point do people not say stop? What point do they just feel like they have to keep going? So when I write a book, I want to know where the story goes, because I don't outline when I write. I have no idea where a story is going when I start writing. When I wrote The Testing, there was a guy behind a fence in the first book. I had no idea who that guy was when he showed up. Just a guy behind a fence where he's not supposed to be. And if you haven't read The Testing, there's a guy behind a fence. And when you see him, you'll know who I'm talking about. I finished the first book, and I still had no idea who that guy was. Turns out, he's super important into the entire series. I had no idea. So when I write a book, first and foremost, I write to find out where the story goes. I have no clue. I know where the story starts, and I hope at some point it will have an ending. And then I write to find out what people will do and what I think about things. Because I had ideas about tests when I wrote The Testing, but I didn't really know exactly what I thought about them and look at it from all sides until I wrote the book. And that's the way I felt about N.E.E.D or NODIG. I wanted to know how far people would go. At what point are you willing to do things online? Or am I willing to do things online? Or my friends? And at what point do you draw a line in the sand and say, no, I'm not going off the cliff anymore? Like, I would be willing to do it under other circumstances, but I'm not willing to do it now. So I think that's what I do when I write books. And I was also asked, what would make a good YA novel? Like, what makes good young adult books? A good story. I think a lot of times people want to say that young adult books are about a lot of other things than adult books. No. I think a good young adult book has a young adult at the heart of the story. And that doesn't make the story any less. I think some adults think that those who read young adult books when they're adults aren't challenging themselves, aren't reading a great book. I would argue that young adult books are some of the best books out there. Young adult characters are the best adult characters out there. And it's because, especially now, adults mostly want people to tell them that they're right about stuff. You see it online all the time. Nobody wants to read an article and learn something new or say, oh my God, maybe I was wrong. No politicians ever want to say in our country that they're wrong. They want someone to confirm that they're right. You see it on Facebook all the time. People keep posting articles that everybody says, no, that's wrong. Here's all disproven. They don't care. It validates what they believe. I think adults want people to tell them they're right to believe what they believe. I think that's not as interesting to write about. I think writing about a teen character is far more interesting. Because I think the best thing about teens is they're still figuring out the world. And they're willing to ask the questions. And they're willing to admit that maybe they don't have all the answers, because they're allowed to not have all the answers. And they're making choices for themselves about what they believe about the world. And I think the fact that they can change their minds about what they believe about the world makes them far more interesting to write about. So maybe someday I'll go back to writing adult books occasionally. But I think you'll find me writing teen novels for a very long time, because teen characters are fascinating. Their journeys are fascinating because they're all of our journeys. They're the people we wish we still were. And sometimes the way I wish I still am. Sometimes I am. We'll see. You can follow my Twitter feed sometimes and see if I really am. Anyway, well, thank you for having me. I wish I could be there in person Skyping. I'm at another event here in the U.S., but I am so honored that all of you are here today discussing YA and that you might really be willing to read my books. So I hope you give my newest one, NODIG. I think I'm saying that right. If not, I apologize, and everyone can laugh at me a lot. I'm okay with that. I hope you give it a try. And I won't tell you you need to, because there is a difference between a want and a need. And boy, they find that out in this book. But I hope you do. And I hope you want to. And I hope you come find me on social media and come say hello. I don't speak Dutch, but I am able to use Google Translate. Anyway, thanks so much. And I hope you guys have a really great day. Readers are the best people in the world because you're looking for the possibilities in life. And thanks for looking for the possibilities with me.